Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz drummer, composer, and author Artt Frank. We caught up with him on January 14th, 2021, 1 month to the day he will release his newest memoir, Chet Baker, The Later Years, Looking for the Light. Artt was a dear friend to Chet. He told me that Chet said that Artt was the brother he never had. And at the end of the day, Artt is part of a dying breed as one of the few authentic bop musicians on the scene today. He worked with Chet for 14 years and also spent some quality time with the likes of Jimmy Heath, Cohn, Ted Curson, Sonny Stitt, Phil Moore, and sat in, on occasion, with the great Charlie Parker, Lee Morgan, Ted Dameron, Dexter Gordon, and Bud Powell. This guy is full of history. He's 88 years old and still full of fire and vigor for life and storytelling. He's got a lot to say about Chet and so much more. Dig the story. So, Artt, thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today. I appreciate it, man.
Oh, anytime, man.
You know, the beauty of your book is there's so many parts of it, as I mentioned already, the humanizing that you've done with Chet, and I think that's the thing. There's a lot of things that have been demonized about him, but at the core of him, the reason why he's moved the world the way he is because the essence and soul of him comes out in that genuine way, and you saw that up front.
Yeah, I did when I first met him in 1954. Funny thing, when I walked into it's called the Storyville Jazz Club in Boston, he came down off the stand and I said, "Hey, Chet, Artt Frank, remember me?" I sort of bluffed, just joking. So he said, No, sorry, man. So he started walking out with Carson Smith and I forget the piano player was. And then he turned around and he looked at me and he waved me. I pointed to myself, "You mean me?" And he nodded. So we went outside and we had a talk, and it was very, very nice. And this was at the height of his career. And we stood along, I forget the name of the town, we stood along the sidewalk next to the curb, and the cars were going by quite rapidly. And Chet said, if I had been a trumpet player, I would have been like a race driver to race in Le Mans and win the race. I thought, wow, you believe me? I said, yeah, that was his first dream, to become a race driver. I'll tell you, if you knew Chet, you wouldn't want to ride with him. He was something else, man. I'll tell you.
That's wonderful. The one thing, there's so many stories in here that I love in the book. And the one is you getting ready for him to come over for dinner. And it was almost like, a deity was coming over to the house. What was that like? I mean, did you think that it was going to happen? I mean, what were your thoughts on all that?
I got to tell you a story that it should be in the book. I'm pretty sure it is. When I was married to my first wife, we were living in a little cabin in Maine. And it was so viciously cold. And I know all I had was a 45 record of Chet playing The Lamp is Low and Imagination. And I told him, I said, one day I'm going to have Chet Baker playing in our living room. And we were flat broke at that time, living in Maine. And I told him, one day we're going to have Chet Baker playing in my living room. Long story short, I met him in California in a place called Dante's Jazz Club in North Hollywood. I listened to him. And he wasn't playing. He was singing maybe kept a couple of bursts of the horn, nothing really melodic or lyrical. And he left the club, and there was only maybe a handful of people in the club. Anyway, he walked outside. I walked outside with him, and I said, "Hey, Chet." He said, "Yeah." I said, he talked like that. He was very high. Yeah. I said, "What are you doing tomorrow? You come back tomorrow night?" He said, No. I just hired for one night just to make some money, put food on the table for my wife and kids. I said, "What are you doing tomorrow night?" He says, "Well, nothing, man." I said, "You have children?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Why don't you come over to my house tomorrow? Your wife and children had dinner with me and my wife, our 3 kids." And he looked at me like, for a long time I thought I had insulted him. He says, "Well," so I gave him my card. And he said, "Well," I said, "I'll call tomorrow." I never thought he'd call. Anyway, the next following day, my wife kept everyone else off the telephone in case he called. And I'm painting a house someplace in Beverly Hills for I forget who it was, some actor. And anyway, she called me and said, "Chet Baker's calling, he's coming tonight." Well, dig this, man. I don't think we had more than $12 or $13 to together. I went to a local store, bought the best steak I could, and an apple pie and ice cream, and the potatoes, the whole bit. So he comes that night at about 7 o'clock, and he just has his wife, Carol, with him, and she was a beautiful, beautiful black-headed lady, and peach and cream, like, you know. They came in the house, and we took off from there. And we had dinner. We went into the next room, the big room, and I said, "Did you bring your trumpet with you, Chet?" He said, "Yeah." So he went out the car, and he comes in, and he has a flugelhorn wrapped in a beautiful blue towel. Didn't even have a case. So he takes it out, and I said, "Do you mind if I throw this, Chet?" He said, "No." And he started to play, and he couldn't play too much. He would play maybe, I knew I love you. So, and he started to play. All of a sudden, he rips his long passage off, and then he stopped. He was in pain in his mouth. You could see he had been beaten up 7 months, 8 months earlier than that, and he had suffered permanent trigeminal nerve damage on both sides of his jaw and mouth, so that he lost his arm, so that when he played, it would hurt. Plus, he had 4 of his upper front teeth knocked out. And the neurologist told that he would never play again. But he said, wow. I don't believe that, man. I'm going to find some way to play. So for the next couple of months, 5, 6, 7 months, he was at my house. I'd go to his house and down to the beach. He'd come to my house in Culver City. I bought him a flugelhorn because he had hawked his flugelhorn. I hawked the flugelhorn. I said, "I'll buy this play set with a provision that you promise me you'll practice." He said, "I will, man, I will." And he did. And over 5, 6, 7, 8 months, Joe, he was coming. He couldn't play a whole tune. But I'll tell you something, after 7, 8, 9 months, he started to play "I Love You." And it was the most magnificent, beautiful, lyrical song I have ever heard in my life. I mean, I bring him in his ears just thinking what that man went through just to learn how to play again. And he couldn't play at all. He had to relearn all over again to play that trumpet. I'm telling you something. He developed a sound so unique, so whisper soft, yet it was, he said he was looking for a special sound, and he found it. It was like, if you listen to him closely, he had the ability to put the air coming out of the horn just before the sound. Check that. You hear the air just before, like, it's unique. The most identical sound there is in trumpet, man. Believe me.
Absolutely, I believe it. You know, what I got from the book, too, is that he always looked out for you, no matter what was going on. I remember that scene in the barbershop in L.A. It's like he always looked out for you, no matter what happened or no matter what might have been going on. There was no one that was going to mess with you. Did you always feel like he was kind of a guardian angel?
Well, I do, but I also thought I was his guardian angel because, you know, everyone left him. He was alone. Even all the musicians that he recorded with, played with, the record company slowed down. Nobody, I'm serious, no one wanted a thing to do with Chet. The dead man, as far as they were concerned. That's why I had an acting career as well as being a jazz musician. I decided to give the acting up to work with Chet to get him back, get his horn back, get his mouth back. And it worked, man, over a period of couple of years. He was back on top.
What is it about, you know, everybody hears the word Chet Baker. We know his music. It's beautiful. He's a legend. Right. But you were his friend. You saw this guy, and you have great feelings. You have 2 books. What is it about Chet that is the most alluring, the most magnanimous thing about Chet that you can dispense?
Well, I would say his honesty. I remember seeing something, I'll never forget. He said, most people like to BS. He could not stand man's inhumanity to a fellow man. He could not understand that. And there was a sadness about Chet that was in his face always until he smiled, which he really did. I mean, rarely did, because a lot of people were always around him. They only wanted to be around him because of who he was, but not because of what they could help him to do. When I met him, he knew that I was honest, because I was broke like he was. He came into my house. I don't know if he thought I was going to have a nice big mansion, but it wasn't. It was a 2-bedroom house, small little place in Culver City. He walked in with his beautiful wife, sat down, no airs. He looked around. I knew what he was thinking. Well, this guy's nothing, man. He's got nothing to help me with, you know. That's what I thought he was thinking. But it was quite the opposite, man. He came over and actually hugged me and sat down. And
Yeah.
I just knew right there, this guy was totally sincere. This guy was, I hate to use this word, hungry. He was hungry for truth. Someone to love him for who he was, not for what he could do as far as playing trumpet or whatever. That's how listen, I was an unschooled musician. I still can't read a note, but I've written over 70 tunes. And I worked with Chet. I played with Bird. I played with a lot of cats. I don't have to prove it. It's history. But anyway, Chet had a sadness about him. One used to pass those, and you could hear it in every ballad he played. And even doing up-tempo tunes, you could hear that little hint of sadness and melancholy. Chet was our only child. He had no brothers or sisters. He called me the only brother he ever had.
The next book that's coming out, you obviously have a lot to say about him. Can you give me kind of a preview of what that's going to entail?
Yeah, the first book, he came to live with us in Maine. I told you that later on. I get married again, and we were living in Trumbull, Connecticut. And he contacted me, and we got together, and I went in and played with him at a place called this pub. And we played. Anyway, he is going to Calgary to do a gig, and he come in the phone from Calgary to I'm awful tired, Art. I said, what? Come live with us, and me and Lisa and her parents. And he said, well, I don't want to go unannounced. I asked Lisa's mom and father, and he said, oh, yeah, absolutely, come in. So he lived with us in Trumbull, Connecticut, which we had access to New York City, all the clubs in New Jersey or Maine or Massachusetts, where we'd play, And we redeveloped our friendship. I get news. The second book, it deals with things after, and it reveals his death and beyond the death, and how I decided to retire from playing. And until his wife called me, his widow called me and said, "Oh, you should do a tribute to Chet. He would love it." So I got guys like Dave Liebman, and on saxophone, and the great Phil Marquis, and I got Dennis Irwin on bass, and myself, and a young trumpet player named Billy Dowden, and we did that tribute to Chet Baker, Always Looking for the Light. That's the name of the album, Looking for the Light. And ironically, that's the title of the second book, Chet Baker, Always Looking for the Light, because I was so joked. We went down San Lamont to the beach, and I was always talking about the Spirit of God, Jesus Christ. And he said, well, I don't believe in God the way you do, Art. He said, I play. I believe I'm put on earth just for a little while, and then that's it. So I kept talking about the Lord and the light of the Lord. And that's why I think the second book, the publisher decided to name the book, the second book, Chet Baker, Always Looking for the Light. Because he was. He was once you get inside past the horn and past the phoneness of what man has done, he was a real true man. I mean, he would never lie to me. He would never take advantage of me. He was just a pure cat, man.
Speaking of seeing the light, when did all this jazz begin for you? When did you see the jazz light? How did this become your life?
It's funny. I had my first gig. I was 16 years old. I hitchhiked to New York City. So a lot of people don't believe it, but it's a fact. Chet knew it. So I sat with Charlie Park when I was 16. It's a place called the Roll Rooster in New York City on Broadway way back in late 48. I was about 16 years old. I had it then. I never knew I was going to go into it. And I didn't have any idea of going to become a musician. But it just happened. I gave it up for a while. I drove cab for about 6 or 7 years. I'd play on the side, but never looking until I saw Chet. And I got him a gig, the comeback gig in Hollywood, the Melody Room. He had his choice of any drummer in L.A., from the Skelly Man, so on and so forth. But he chose me. I said, hey, Chet, don't hire me because, you owe me something. He says, no. He said, I love your playing, man. I love the way you play. So he heard me playing in one little club. And he hired me to do the comeback gig with him in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard. And the name of the place was called the Melody. Right? It was packed with stars when they said they could come back. I'll tell you, Joe, when you walked into that club, it was packed with stars. It was unbelievable. And it was small. It was a rock joint. It's now known as the Viper Room, owned by some actor. What's his name? Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
So the Melody Room now known as the Viper Room. But anyway, Herb Alva was there, and Yeah, well, God, I can name the people. I can see the center across the street working. They come in the club a lot. Every night they'd be in, have to do their act. They'd come in. Yeah, Dion Walker's husband, Bill Elliott come in. Frankie Avalon, Herb Alpert. Oh, so many other people. A couple of actors, I can't do the name. They came in. I mean, Chet was so well loved.
What historically has been the most satisfying thing about waking up every day and being a musician? What do you love the best about it?
Playing with Chet Baker. Right?
Wonderful.
I mean, come on,
yeah.
you don't get any better than that, baby.
No.
I mean, I played with a lot of cats in my life. And I was standing with Art Pepper Bird. Yeah, just about everybody. Bud Powell and his brother Richie Powell. Oh, yeah, so many people. But there was something about Chet that was like, I remember walking into the club with him. Oh, can we help you, Mr. Baker? Can you help me? Hey, Mr. Frank, you want something? Like he was some kind of royalty. I have fans now in Italy, Palestine, Israel, Brazil. I mean, because I was with Chet Baker, they think I'm some kind of god. I mean, I've been offered to fly over to Italy with a room, the whole bit. Like, hey, I can't now. You know, I'm going on 88 years old.
You know, we all have a very fond image of Chet. How do you want the world to remember you? How do you want the jazz world to remember what you've done?
It doesn't matter, Joe. I mean, I think what matters is I have faith in God and Jesus Christ. That's one of the things. But as far as being remembered, the guy who helped other people out. That's the guy who cared about helping other people out, the poor, intimate. Let me tell you a quick story in the second book. I don't know if I'm the first. Chet Baker and I and my wife Lisa were going to the Village Vanguard to see, El Cohn. No, I'm sorry, Zoot Sims. And while we're down there, we're on the way. We decided to walk here. It was only about 18 blocks, and it was about just before winter, and there was these people hanging around a barrel fire. You know what a barrel fire is, don't you?
Yeah.
It's an open barrel, and you throw paper and stuff. And anyway, there was this one black guy who had just a T-shirt on, not a T-shirt, but free, and he was shivering. So Chet had on a coat, and he walked in. He said, "Hey man," he took the coat off. He said, "Try this, man." The guy put it on. He said, "Oh, it feels good." Chet says, "Keep it, man." And we started walking off. The guy couldn't believe it. Another quick little anecdote. Where Chet lived, he had a small apartment. And people would come in. I went from using a bathroom one time, and there was a black guy in there taking a shower. I said, you know who that is out there? He said, "No, who's that?" I said, "That's Chet Baker." He said, "The summer place." He couldn't believe it. Chet would let people off the street come in, take a shower, and give them something to eat. I mean, he was a giving man. One quick story in Hollywood. We were going down Sunset Boulevard. We went to a place on Denny's on Sunset, and there was an old guy digging in the wastebasket outside for food. And Chet said, "Look at that cat, man." He goes outside, takes them by the arm, brings them in, sits down with us, and buys them a meal. Now, this is no BS. This is true, Joe. The kind of a cat Chet was. He was a giving man. Truthfully.
Yeah. So as this book gets ready to come out here in February, right now you have the chance to say to people that are thinking about Chet, say something to them about buying this book. Why should someone get this book? What are they gonna get out of your new book?
Well, if you go to the first book, that's something the world never knew about Chet. His humanity, a husband and a wife, and his 3 children, and his friendship to me. The second book takes off where the first one leaves off, and it becomes a little more moving. Total relationship we had, getting together. My wife Lisa was also a trumpet player. She was a budding trumpet player, and Chet would take his trumpet and show her how to do little cute little secrets. And there's one thing he told her: you take a deep breath in, hold it, and you take another breath on top of the hold it, so almost tone flows. He showed this to her, and you want to hear the tone she has now, Joe. I mean, she's not a professional trumpet player, but she's got that Chet Baker tone. So did his son, Paul. When Paul was living with us, Chet's son, she was teaching him. He was about 20 years old. She was teaching him how to play against Chet's records. We get down, put that records on, and play. And anyway, he started to sound like Chet. And all of a sudden, for some reason, he gave it up. I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. But as far as why they should buy it, is because it talks about the man behind the horn, the love of the man, his strengths, his weaknesses, which he did have. He did have weaknesses, you know, the drug addiction. And a lot of people have drug addiction, and a lot of people have addiction like smoking, drinking, sex, whatever. I told him one time, I said, take a bow, man. You've brought so much pleasure to people through your music and your singing. And he just, it's hard to say, Joe, without sounding foolish. I love the guy, man. He loved me, and I think why we get along so good together, I think one guy was saying, some critic in New York City, Pete Corley, was saying, watching you and Chet Baker is like watching a championship tennis match. One serves, the other volleys. And that's what he said about me and Chet playing together. Because I don't read them. I never took a lesson. I still don't practice. I mean, if you have it, you don't need practice. It's a gift of God. So with Chet, that's why we get along so well together. Incidentally, if you go on YouTube and put down Chet Baker and then me, put my name first, Artt Frank and Chet Baker, you'll see a whole lot of stuff you'll be able to hear about me. Chet and I playing together.
What were some of the songs that you loved playing? Were there specific songs that you just look forward to playing with them?
Yeah, one he loved, the all-time favorite ballad, is called "I Waited for You" by Joe Fuller. That was his all-time favorite ballad. He had a lot of other ones, but that was the one he chose to play all the time. And also up-tempo, "Everyone." I wouldn't say he also, believe it or not, looked for the silver lining. I remember we did the Schaefer Jazz All-Star Festival in 1975 in Central Park, New York. Everybody was there. Hank Crawford, Grover Washington, Hubert Laws, Ron Carr, everyone was there. So anyway, I was with me, with Chet, Harold Danko on piano, Cameron Brown on bass, Chet Baker on trumpet, myself on drums, and we played Janine, anyway. Then he played a couple of other tunes like Fair Weather, and then all of a sudden he was going to play another one, and the crowd got up and started yelling, "Silver lining, silver lining." It was a thing that Chet did, one of his favorites. He vocalized it, But his all-time favorite ballad, along with "I Waited for You," was My Funny Valentine.
Wow.
My Funny Valentine.
Artt, hey, man, this has been a huge pleasure. I'm so glad that I've read the book. I'm so glad that you put Chet in such a great light. And it's wonderful, man. And I appreciate what you've done for the world.
Right. And one more thing I'll tell you. I was inducted into the same Jazz Hall of Fame that Chet was. And it was just a beautiful thing. So Chet and I are still linked together with both in the Jazz Hall of Fame. So anyway, the second book is coming up Valentine's Day 2021. God bless you, man.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Los Angeles, Maine, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Artt for being a jazz treasure. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.